Hello everyone. I hope everyone's having a good day and also is trying to stay chill and just be relaxed with all this heat wave going on through these recent days going on and stuff. But in this video I would like to honestly get into the topic of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But in this video I will also want to talk about just the sources of every each bending element, whether it be fire to water to earth to air. I want to honestly dive into the sources of every element, but only talk about just the African version of it. And what I mean by that is, long story short, there are some power sets or some some power sets are not just born like out of nowhere naturally. There are some power sets to where they have natural sources. A good example would be in Marvel comics. You have the Black Panther. Basically, he's not just the Black Panther all by himself. It was a family thing. It was passed on generation to generation. Then you also have the herbs, and also you have the secondary source of the Black Panther, which is the Black Panther pantheon, where you have all the ancestral souls of past ancestors who were like a version of Black Panther throughout the years in Wakanda itself. Then you have DC Universe, which is Shazam. The whole acronym of Shazam itself is basically an acronym for like any type of god that just honestly is living. The first, basically Shazam character would be arguably Black Adam. Adam was the first Shazam himself, and his name and his acronym of Shazam was Ancient Egypt, basically like gods or demigods all together. And then you have the Shazam Billy Batson. He his gods is more like updated with Greek mythology and etc. But also in Avatar, if I had to get down to it, it would be just in Avatar: Last Airbender. Basically, in that universe, their source of energy is within the tiger turtles and whatever. Basically, when you look into like the I guess flashbacks of the very first Avatar, where all the tiger turtles were basically their own lands for both human society and spirit society all together. When you look into the very first Avatar, um, like past and like his flashback altogether. But mind y'all, I also written down notes so I can honestly say what I have to say easily in this video as well too when it comes to African gods and goddesses. But let me get down to it real quick. So the first like god slash goddess that I would like to bring up would be Oya, which is a goddess. Oya was honestly a warrior queen and goddess of lightning, thunder, and different storms and winds. I chose her as like an African like god slash goddess to talk about because I feel like she represents more of the air element, angst element. And if I had to talk about more about like how she is as a goddess, it would be just the fact of she's also the sister of Shangu, the god of fire and storms, and also just the fact of she helps him like create storms as well too and lightning. But that's I'm going to get down to that later on in this video. Long story short, Shangu's going to be one of the very last few very last gods that I'm going to talk about altogether. Then there's the other elemental god slash goddess that I like to talk about would be Oshun. Oshun is the goddess of river and water. She is also known in the Yoruba religion in our African culture. She is also known to be one of the most powerful gods slash orishas in the African culture itself. She represents fertility, love, and purity, and sensuality. The other honestly, the other god slash goddess I like to talk about would be Maui or Mawu. Spelling is Mawu. She is the goddess of the moon and is prominently known in the tribe of basically Dahamui or Dahamui. Basically, the spelling is Dahomey, and also that tribe is a part of the African culture as well too. She created all the landscape of the world and also the rivers and valleys, while riding on a great cosmic snake's mouth as well too. She also shot light in the sky to create animals in the world before going back to heaven altogether when it comes to Mau's like mythology as a goddess. Now, why I want to talk about both the moon goddess and the river and water goddess is because I feel like both of them together in one breath, they honestly work together very well, especially if you reference Avatar Last Airbender's mythos as well as a fandom. Because when it comes to waterbenders, they're not only just water bending altogether, but their element as a whole becomes way stronger when there's like a full moon out as well too. And honestly, that's why I want to talk about a goddess from Africa, from African culture, our culture, when it comes to being another power source besides it being a water power source alone. Which, by the way, again, if I had to make a reference again towards the Avatar Last Airbender, the other god that I would like to talk about besides honestly between moon and water, which by the way, again, long story short, the reason why I talked about like water, the elements of water and moon being their own elements in one like category for the waterbenders is because both of them go hand in hand, and all waterbenders need both to become like I guess competent slash strong waterbenders, especially knowing the fact that full moon improves their waterbending altogether. But aside from all that, the next element that I like to talk about is the earth element, and the goddess of the earth element would be Allah. Not honestly Allah from Muslim um, religion altogether, but this Allah is spelled ALA. Basically, this Allah. Now, Allah basically represents earth, fertility, mortality, and creativity in the Oldinani tribe in South Nigeria and Africa altogether. She can also represent the goddess who honestly is responsible for the underworld, and also she holds all past or late ancestors in her womb altogether as a goddess, but she's mainly known in the south area of Nigeria and Africa itself, the Odani tribe altogether. And if you want to know how you spell Odinani, is Odinani, Nani, Odinani. That's how you spell it. The next god slash goddess I like to talk about is Shangu, god of fire, lightning, and thunder in African culture. He also is depicted as a god who wields a double-edged axe. Now, why I want to talk about the double-edged axe is not because of the fact of alone that Shangu's like, I guess, detail as a god, but also it'll be just the fact of him holding a double-edged axe, a part of him as a god, is interesting to me because if you think about it, when it comes to the Fire Nation in Avatar Last Airbender itself, and its mythos altogether, the Fire Nation altogether has like a double-edged sword or an axe in a play on words type of past. Because yes, majority or most firebenders in a way when it comes to being a nation over time, they become more corrupt and looked like colonials. But yet, when you look at like old history of the Fire Nation itself, arguably it is arguable that they were just a normal nation, or they had like pretty okay backgrounds until you had like one bad seed, which was, I forgot who was that Fire Lord back then, but like it was in like Avatar Oroku's timeline. It was him. He was the first Fire Lord who started the whole thing of the Fire Nation could overtake all the four lands or four nations altogether in Avatar Last Airbender. That's when it became fire bending altogether became corrupt and more oppressive in a way. And like Fire Nation in general started wars because of just that one Fire Lord or that one leader that was corrupt. It started from there and then it just kept going until you got to Zuko's daddy, and he Fire Lord Ozai. He didn't make the like situation any better. But getting deeper into it, another thing about him is like God Shengu would be just the fact of he is depicted to use thunderstones to cast lightning and thunder. Now, why I bring that up is those thunderstones. I strongly feel like that came from like the goddess Oya, because back when I was talking about Oya, Oya helped Shengu like wield the power to cast lightning and storms all together. I mean, no, not storms, but like lightning and thunder all together, and I find it interesting. And besides those small details, another thing I like to talk about when it comes to making a reference to Avatar: Last Airbender, it'll be just the fact that firebenders not only firebend, but they also bend lightning or utilize lightning in their craft as well, even though there are fire benders altogether. Another thing that I like talked about would be just the fact of, well, Shengu is another god that it is known to be very strong as well too, and African culture altogether. The last like source of bending, yeah, mainly bending would be just the fact of the god Liza. This reminds me of Lizzo. Liza basically is the sun god. She is correction, he is the sun god. Basically he his feats basically he is known prominently in the West African area, known in a tribe called the Fon, Fon. And on top of that is just the fact of, well, the only reason why I bring up like Liza as an individual slash god when it comes to like African culture for being a sun god is because of the fact of, well, firebenders, they get like honestly they get more powerful during the day arguably. And on top of that, besides like that fact, that arguable fact, the most powerful that I feel like what the Fire Nation needs, and I think even we can say this today a little bit, it'll be just the fact of the Fire Nation before like modern times, before they became like oppressed. I guess not oppressed, but like being taught that if you have like immense power from the Fire Nation, like playing fire altogether, then you can like oppress the rest of the world before like that type of thinking came around, like colonial thinking. Um, Fire Nation altogether, like they had people that formed their own tribe called the Sun Tribe, and honestly, the reason why I bring up honestly, the god Liza, the sun god from African culture, would be just the fact of the tribe of the sun, like people who are in the sun tribe altogether inside the Fire Nation's culture, they believe differently from the ways of like Fire Lord Ozai and etc. Where it's like you just have like overwhelming power, so you use it as a force. No, the firebenders who are in the like sun drive believe differently. Their beliefs is the fact of they can like wield firebending from not only just the sun itself, but also they also believe in the fact that firebending started all from like dragons. Dragons were like the very first firebenders, hypothetically. And not only that, but they're very indigenous when it comes to their beliefs, because another belief that they would honestly believe in, besides the sun and also dragons being the first firebenders, it would be the fact that they believe in fire being a living thing. Like, it's not just an overwhelming force to utilize, but they also see fire as a living like source or a power source in a way. Kind of like if I had to make like an old reference to like Avatar Last Airbender, it's like with Aang's first firebending teacher. I forgot who his name was. My bad, y'all. It's been a minute, but yeah, like his very first firebending teacher basically dude taught Aang that fire is not just all about tricks and knowing how to utilize fire from your freaking fingertips. Firebending is a craft or is like a bending skill where it's like you wielding a source of power, but that source of power is living in, it can be controlled or it can be uncontrollable if you don't have the right discipline or the right um, yeah, basically the right discipline to try and control that power altogether. But that's my list of honestly gods and goddesses when it comes to like this video and talking about like basically altogether Avatar Last Airbender and all of their bending abilities. Oh yeah, real quick before I stop this video, the last thing I like to talk about when it comes to like the god Liza, it will be the fact of honestly another detail within like his mythos within the like African cult like our African culture. It would be just the fact of Liza was also known to help create the universe with Mau, the Mao, the goddess of the moon, basically riding on the same serpent, the great cosmic serpent that they was riding on as well too. They both work together to create the universe all together when it comes to like the mythos of Lizzo. Now, why I bring up the like that fact up is because of the fact of I feel like it was a like important mention or important like detail to bring up because of the fact of how should I say this? Serpents and dragons are kind of like the same. They're both reptilian, and I felt like in a way it would have been like a good poetic way to make a reference towards like the sun like tribe having that belief of dragons were the first firebenders before firebending was ever created or ever was a thing. But please leave a like if you liked this video. Please sub if you enjoyed it or my other videos. Thank you and bye. And also, please also don't feel like nervous or anything to leave comments. Please leave comments and your thoughts about this video. Thank you and bye.